All right, welcome to the party, pal, GRC Mafia. Thank you for everybody who's hopping in or otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and go through this introduction, and then I'll also open up the stage itself. One of the things that I wanted to go over, considering we had that awesome talk about HITRUST with Ryan last week, I wanted to go through and just kind of review some of the main sections of the HITRUST assessment handbook that he shared. I'll drop a link for that here in a moment as well. I do have it in the description too. Let me grab that real quick if you guys want to go ahead and pull it up as well. Hope everybody's having an awesome week. All right, so right out of the gate here. So we're here to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community, working towards a more secure future for everybody. This is definitely a learning and growing environment. Ask questions. If I don't know something, somebody else in chat or somebody I know, I'm positive, will be able to answer the question for you. That's one of the biggest things. Definitely feel comfortable to ask questions, share resources, and so forth. I am going to drop the stage link if anybody else would like to come up and join me. If you guys want to join the conversation, ask questions, maybe a different topic or whatever you got, definitely hop into our Discord server for, I'm trying to throw this in chat here. So join our Discord server in order to get the additional assistance, especially outside of the stream, but then also during the stream or otherwise. It's an awesome place to communicate and drop links. So you can also go ahead and throw your personal LinkedIn, your Blue Sky, X, Twitter, whatever other social profiles that you have in the live chat channel or the intros channel. So that way we could all connect outside of these streams as well. Let's see. Also, when you do come up, don't share anything that you don't want to be public. That's a really big aspect. If you happen to do so, reach out to me on Discord, LinkedIn, or you can also reach me at contact@studygrc.org. And then you guys may be familiar with it. So B-Dubs publishes an article every single Monday regarding cybersecurity GRC, and then also has the ongoing CISSP study group going on as well. That's every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Time, and Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central Time. So I put those links in the chat as well if you guys want to go ahead and take a look at that. And then I'm going to go ahead and get transitioned over here. Yeah, and it's also not that much easier considering the fact that Restream went through and reset everything. So they just updated their studio and everything, which is great, except for the fact that it also reset all of the settings here too. But that's fine. If there's one thing PBO has taught me, it's struggle streaming. All right, let me double check this, and then I'm going to go ahead and start going through this. Welcome to the party, pal, Brexy. And so I did drop that link for the HITRUST assessment handbook in chat. I can go ahead and drop it again if anybody needs it. I'm also going to go ahead and drop the stage link as well, and I'll drop the stage link throughout. There's a couple different sections. I started going through this earlier this afternoon, and I was like, it would actually be a pretty good live stream for us to just go through and, kind of review it. We're not going to go through the whole thing today, obviously. So 237 pages in total. This is the PDF version, which is openly accessible as well. I'll drop that in chat. But there were a couple different key things that I noticed, in particular when I started to skim through it. I didn't go very in-depth into it, but one of the big things that I noticed is a lot of the terminology. They do define everything, but they definitely use a different terminology than what I've come across, through going through NIST and so forth. I think that would be one of the difficult parts. And then it is pretty rigorous. So we can see here that the assessment workflow section, so chapter 5, goes through and talks about the assessment process itself. There are also some really good diagrams and screenshots in here from their own system, MyCSF, that you are also required to utilize when submitting for HITRUST and so forth. So I'm just going to go ahead and skim some of this section here. And then we'll probably skip ahead. I'll go through some of these first few pages because there was a couple things off the bat. And then we'll probably skip ahead to the assessment workflow. I believe R2 is the hardest one, if I remember correctly. And I have to double check the diagram. And then I believe I1 was the lowest, or E1. Let's see here. Yeah, pre-assessment web forms, name and security assessment options, scope of the assessment, carve-outs, alternative controls, implemented maturity levels, population and sampling. Sampling is probably another one that I want to take a look at as well. For some reason, I kind of have like a little fascination with sampling because that's really a make or break, in my opinion, based on how you are actually you're sampling your evidence and so forth. And then, like I said, if you guys have questions or otherwise throughout, definitely let me know. Drop it in chat. And you can also come up on stage if you would like. Quality assurance process, Q&A tasks. All right. I'm going to go ahead and skim down here. It is a pretty good size book. I wonder if you can get this in paper copy. So the purpose of the assessment handbook is to define the requirements for those organizations assessing their information protection programs against the HITRUST CSF. All right. The assessment handbook is intended to provide guidance and expectations to assessed entities and HITRUST external assessors on the HITRUST assessment. And here in a moment, that one of the sections I noticed too is when it was talking about the certifications that you can obtain. Apparently, there's a large amount of third-party assessors for this as well. It seems to be a big portion of HITRUST as the third party. The assessment handbook assumes a baseline understanding of HITRUST, the HITRUST CSF framework, and the HITRUST assurance program. Now, one of the biggest downsides here is that, so this handbook is assuming these, but this isn't really information that I have found available. So they do have their customer like onboarding introduction that you can register for and get approved or otherwise, which Ryan last week stated that, you know, we could reach out to him and he can get us into that training program or otherwise for customer onboarding. But even when you look over that, it's definitely more of a customer thing than like an introduction 101. And so we're probably going to have a few issues going through this because I don't have access to the framework. I don't have access to their assurance program or anything else other than this that's publicly available. But at least we could still take some of the information out of here. Another huge benefit too. Oh, unfortunately, I don't have the GRC MAFIA badge enabled, if that's what you're trying to do there, Brexy. Of course, we could still grab information out of here. This is still going to be good info, but we may be limited because, you know, there are paywalls to this. Any updates to the assurance program will be communicated via advisories. Oh, I wonder if we can access that. Can we access the advisories? Nice. So it looks like we can access the advisories. So like this is the most recent advisory here. So HITRUST version, CSF version 11.5 release, April 14th. It's available within my CSF, downloadable here. Is that something we could actually download? Oh, okay. So we may actually be able to download this CSF if I just enter all of my information here. I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick because I'm kind of curious if I can. Because at least if I'm able to get the spreadsheet or documentation for the framework itself, then, you know, that could really kind of help me understand a lot more, and kind of as I'm going through the handbook, then I can also compare it to the framework if it's talking about particular controls or categories or otherwise. So that does make a difference to me. Considering the fact that I have to enter my information, I don't believe that's going to be something I'm going to be able to live stream. But at least I can access that, hopefully. All right, so yeah, you actually can. All right, so I'm going to drop this link as well. So I just entered my information. After I did so, it allowed me to download the kit, the HITRUST CSF kit, which does include the spreadsheet for it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this link as well if you guys want to grab the HITRUST kit as well. Like I said, since I have to enter information, I don't think I'm going to be able to live stream that material, but it could help us along the way, so that way I can compare it as well. And then I'm going to go back over here to the document that we were going through for the assessment handbook and scroll back down here. So we were just going through the introduction here, and I lost track here and got sidetracked right here because it does state, to check out the HITRUST risk management handbook and so forth. And so that's pretty neat too. So they have the assessment handbook, the HITRUST assessment handbook, and then they also have this risk management handbook as well. So that's kind of neat. Just the initial, oh, that's not going to print the whole thing there. I would probably compare this to, like NIST has the 830 for the risk assessment process, and then like the 37 for the risk management framework. And that's what I'm kind of thinking, this one document for the assessment process. They have another document for the risk management program, and so forth. This is actually kind of neat that they do split it up. I'm going to bookmark this, and then maybe we'll go over risk management handbook another day. See, we're only 5 pages in, and I'm already getting a bunch of resources for this. Bam, GRC MAFIA. Yeah, no worries at all, Brexy. This is definitely a random stream and so forth. That's one benefit of it being recorded. And welcome to the party, pal, Rania. All right, so that's a couple interesting things there too. And I'm going to drop the link to the risk management handbook as well, so that way that's in chat for later. And then let me go ahead and close these down. That's really neat that we can get access to the framework still. We could still get the kit even though we got to enter our information for it. The following resources provide additional information about HITRUST. So, that's the kit that I just grabbed. The MyCSF help. And so that's their framework. Oh, all right. So that redirects me over here to the MyCSF help page. Form templates, assessor QA checklist. That's interesting. User guide. And so it looks like we could still access all of this without even being signed in. I don't have an account or anything. And so all of this is still publicly accessible, which is pretty neat. More open than I was already thinking. And then assessed entity resources, external assessor resources. And that's one of the things I noticed later on too, is that there's a huge market for external assessors with HITRUST. The assessment handbook webinar series. Download our HITRUST control maturity scoring rubric. Bam. Yeah, and so this is probably a really awesome resource too, especially like the webinar series. That's one of the other things that Ryan had mentioned is they, underneath the events and training, they do have their webinars, which are freely available as well. And then this is their webinar series going through the assessment handbook, it looks like. So, I mean, that saves us quite a bit of time too. Let's see let's do a rough estimate here. So 30, basically 40 minutes, an hour, so 2, 3, 4. So about 4.5 to 5 hours in length for this webinar series. I'm going to go ahead and drop this too, and I'm actually going to bookmark this because I think going through that webinar series, it's about 4.5 hours, would be a really good route to go in order to get a better understanding about this. All right, let's get back over here to this document now. Welcome to the Party Pal, PBO. How'd your stream go last night? I just dropped PBO's link in the chat as well. PBO goes live every single Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. So that's PBO's late night series. Yeah, and it is an open stage, so if PBO or anybody else wants to come up, you're more than welcome to. Do not feel obligated to do so whatsoever. I'm just going through and skimming this HITRUST risk assessment handbook to kind of rip out all of the different resources that they have and just get a better idea for it. So their advisories are public. We could download the entire kit for no cost. We just have to enter our information. They have that webinar series for this handbook as well. That's about 4.5 hours in length. I'm going to put all of the stuff in the description after this live stream as well for team replay. So the background, so HITRUST CSF is an overarching security and privacy framework that incorporates and harmonizes information protection requirements, including federal, state, and international regulation agencies, rules and guidance, and industry frameworks. This was one of the things that they were talking about that Ryan mentioned last week on Thursday when he was doing like this intro about HITRUST, is that HITRUST CSF combines a total of like 71 plus different frameworks and standards around the world. Originally incorporated from the 853 and the ISO 27K. And then they've just added more and more to it. That's one reason why I'm like a little bit more fascinated about HITRUST, is because it's not just about healthcare. It really can be applied to any industry at this point. And then, it's really looking like the big brother to the 853 at this point. And even if you want to start small, stream was okay. That doesn't sound very comforting, PBO. You're supposed to be like, it was amazing. Woo. PBO is up there throwing hands, 9 p.m. at night. So my CSF assessment platform incorporates the HITRUST CSF in a single tool so organizations can manage information risk and their compliance needs. The MyCSF assessment platform provides organizations of all sizes with a purposefully designed and engineered software as a service solution for performing assessments and corrective action plan management, including enhanced benchmarking and dashboards. I mean, I think that's kind of a love-hate relationship, to be honest. Let me check to see. So we've played around with CISO Assistant. And on another topic here is I do want to work on the help docs, the documentation available to the public for CISO Assistant. So if you guys have played around with CISO Assistant or you would like to, definitely reach out to me, let me know and so forth, because also I'm looking for like community feedback on what type of things, what kind of questions you guys have, where the documentation could be better and so forth as well. And if you're not too familiar about CISO Assistant, I'm also dropping that in chat as well. It's an open source platform and GRC tool here. And I'm just opening this up because I wanted to double check the frameworks here because I don't believe they have the HITRUST, and that could be like some type of legal purpose as well. They do have ISO 27001. However, they don't have the actual control information. So you can install ISO 27K onto CISO Assistant, but then you have to manually fill in the control information because it is paywalled. And so that's why I wanted to look here, because I don't believe they have HITRUST in here at all. I do not see it. Yeah, it doesn't look like they have HITRUST for inside of CISO Assistant at all. So that's like, I may reach out to them or otherwise and see why. Maybe there's a reason they don't have it. Like I said, because HITRUST is a little bit different, and like they do require you to use this HITRUST CSF in the first place. But that does kind of worry me too. I don't like to, I mean, that's a form of vendor lock-in to some extent. I think it's neat that they do provide that to you, but I'm sure that comes at a significant cost as well to utilize their SaaS product for it. I'm kind of curious if you would be able to utilize your own software, such as CISO Assistant, and then just export and submit through MyCSF as required by HITRUST. That's also one of the different types of questions that we could submit to Ryan for clarification as well. I really liked, once you have 800 plus videos. Oh, come on, PBO. How's the course coming along? All right, and let's see. So organizations that would like to become HITRUST certified are expected to adopt all requirements and evaluate of elements in scope for them based on the various factors defined in their assessment. Due to the granularity of the requirements within the HITRUST CSF, it is recommended that organizations perform a readiness assessment to identify their current maturity level prior to pursuing HITRUST certification. This is probably something that is defined a little bit later on, is the readiness assessment, to kind of figure out what tier would you fall into. I'm sure like NIST CSF has a 4-tier system, whether you're adaptive or otherwise. And I'm assuming HITRUST has something similar to that. All right, roles and responsibilities. So the following section describes the roles and responsibilities of HITRUST assessed entities and authorized HITRUST external assessors. Copying responsibilities that must be executed for an assessment to be validated and certified by HITRUST. And then they make a new page here. Yeah, and definitely want to note this portion here too, copyrighted. So I should have no issue with live streaming this because this is publicly accessible without providing any information. So, but this is still copyrighted material. 3.1 assessed entity. Organizations that would like to become HITRUST certified are expected to meet the HITRUST CSF requirements within their information protection framework. All right, so now it's listing out like the different requirements it looks like in order to even become certified. So under the HITRUST Assurance Program, an assessed entity's responsibilities include, so the entity's responsibilities implementing the information protection controls as required by HITRUST CSF, maintaining the information security management program via monitoring, review, and periodic reassessments of the information protection controls, responding honestly, accurately, and completely to inquiries made throughout the assessment process and certification lifecycle, providing the HITRUST external assessor with accurate and complete records and necessary documentation related to the information protection controls. All right, all of this sounds pretty on point at this point. Disclosing all design and operating deficiencies in its information protection controls of which it is aware throughout the assessment process, including those where it believes the cost of correction action may exceed the benefits. I find that kind of interesting that they have to define that. Including those it believes the cost of correction action may exceed the benefits. So even if you can't meet one of those controls or otherwise, or you have a deficiency of some sort, it may cost more to implement that than the benefit of implementing it. So you lose money in the process. But it also isn't, it says the cost of corrective action may exceed the benefits. But they're not defining cost either. Is that just monetary, or are they including other types? So that could come in multiple different forms. So if I have 50,000 employees, is it going to be cost effective for me to enable MFA for everyone and supply them a YubiKey for security keys? But then you also have like the reputation and so forth as well. And I kind of feel like that's left pretty vague there personally. Hey, progress is progress, PBO. I mean, it's not a small course. It's literally an entire course about the 853. So I don't blame you. All right, so disclosing all designs and operating deficiencies, performing the necessary readiness and/or validated assessments to determine they are sufficient, accurately defining and communicating the scope of readiness and/or validated assessments to both its external assessor and HITRUST. This is all sounding pretty straightforward. I don't really see anything popping out that seems abnormal or overreaching. Performing its own due diligence prior to engaging with an external assessor to perform its HITRUST assessment. Although HITRUST employs processes to confirm external assessors continue to meet HITRUST standards, HITRUST cannot guarantee that any external assessor will be successful in its role on any specific engagement. That's a pretty, they bolded that for a reason there too. I think one of the biggest reasons why is because I believe in this next section, yeah, so right here in this next page here, they talk about the certifications. So two of the primary certifications they have is their big boy, I would call it, their primary one, the CCSFP, which I believe is $3,100 for it. And then I think it's like $595 for the exam itself. And then it's, I think it's around $1,600 renewal every year or every 2 years. They have that information on their website, but the CCSFP is like the go-to one that's trained, you get trained by HITRUST, CSF, and so forth. And one of the reasons I wanted to mention this is because right on this previous page here, they're disclosing on the fact that HITRUST cannot guarantee that any external assessor will be successful in its role on any specific engagement. That was like one of the things that were mentioned during the talk last week about HITRUST with Ryan, is that like over 70% of the assessments for HITRUST are conducted by CCSFP certified professionals or practitioners. And yet the number was somewhere in the range of about 19% of assessments are rejected. And that was one of the different questions that were mentioned towards the end of that stream, because that seems kind of concerning. You have 20% chance of your assessment being rejected. That's a pretty high number, to be honest. A 1 in 5 chance, basically. So I believe it was like 19.8 or something along those lines. On that video, we also have a link to the report that he was pulling that information out of. And so that also has diagrams and so forth regarding that. I mean, there were some great other metrics that were involved with it too, because also it's like 0.58% breach out of everybody who follows HITRUST. Less than 1% actually get breached. And so, I mean, that's a pretty impressive metric. But still, 20% rejection rate on assessments submitted to HITRUST. And then they add in this disclaimer that, they can't guarantee that any external assessor will be successful. I understand that they don't want to take that responsibility, of course, but the fact that over 70% is conducted by your own trained CCSFP and still 20% are being rejected, I mean, that's a little concerning. One of the things that were mentioned in that talk when we discussed that portion is they have revoked people with the CCSFP, external assessors, and so forth as well, for integrity violations or, otherwise as well. So, that is one of the different benefits around it, because you do have somebody who's monitoring that kind of stuff. But yeah, still a little concerning there. 866, I think that's HIPAA, right? 866? Yeah. So 866 from NIST is implementing the health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA security rule. This is what PBO just mentioned in chat here, is the 866. So mappings of the HIPAA security rule standards and implementation specifics to NIST cybersecurity framework subcategories and the 853 R5. And so this was updated February of 24. That's probably why PBO is mentioning it, because it's a NIST document that's not 10 years old. And so I'm just gonna, here, let me. Okay, yeah, it's on here. Yeah, and so just looking at the 866 for the HIPAA portion. So like it talks about the security role, risk assessment guide. I think, yeah, considerations when implementing the HIPAA security role. Safeguards, physical safeguards. So like, let's look at physical safeguards, workstation use. So it actually cites the HIPAA standard or requirement or otherwise. Identify workstations and device types and functions or uses. Sample questions. That's pretty useful. Thank you, NIST. So do the policies and procedures identify devices that assess EPHI and those that do not? Is there an inventory of device types and locations in the organization? And then the actual description for this requirement here. Be sure to consider the magnitude of computing devices, develop policies and procedures for each type of device, and identify and accommodate their use, and so forth. They definitely make that easy. Do you have a new video for HIPAA, PBO? So for that 866, I mean, that was updated February of 24. All right, let's see here. PBO's got to do a new CMMC video too. And so if you guys are just tuning in or otherwise, we're just going through this assessment guide for HITRUST CSF and some of the different details within it. There's all kinds of resources I already pulled out of this document here. I dropped it in chat as well. And then I'll also put the links in the description after the live stream too. And so these are the two different certifications that they have. So the CCSFP, which is like the gold standard for them. That's very common for those external assessors and so forth. There's also some type of requirement that you have to have X many at an organization that has HITRUST certification. And then you also have the CHQP. Let's see. So certified CSF practitioners who act in the quality assurance role on HITRUST assessment engagements. They've completed the training course and passed the certification exam. Such individuals typically work for a HITRUST external assessor. Whereas this CCSFP would be, or a HITRUST licensed firm or practice that provides HITRUST consulting services. But this could also be an assessed entity. It could be an external assessor and so forth. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of curious. So I'm going to actually take both of these down because I'm going to write these questions down here. Because one of my questions here is like, okay, so you have the CCSFP and then you have the CHQP. There's about $1,000 difference between the two. So like $2,500 for the CHQP or $3,100 for the CCSFP. I mean, when you're talking in those figures anyways, in comparison to the rest of the market, you know, I wonder what the primary differences are. And it says designation reserved for the quality assurance role. So I wonder if you could just skip straight to the CCSFP and not even have a CHQP on staff. All external and internal assessors are required to maintain their knowledge of the HITRUST assurance process. CSF methodology and framework by having comprehensive understanding of this assessment handbook and corresponding advisories. Now, we did just find out that the advisories are public as well, which is awesome to see. And then also Ryan had shared with us last week that so the framework goes through 2 or more updates a year. And so there are like newsletters and information and so forth that's pushed out to these assessors and, to keep everybody up to date with what's going on and what changes have occurred and so forth as well. They have a section here for external assessors, organizations that have been approved by HITRUST for performing assessment. So all external assessors must be approved by HITRUST via an application process. See external assessors for more information. So yeah, there's probably some type of, so you have to, so on this page right here, you have to actually contact them in order to become an external assessor within their network. So we can help your organization become an authorized HITRUST external assessor or readiness licensee. So sounding a little bit like ISO in that. Oh, geez. David B popping in now. Yeah, so just a quick rundown here. So I'm going through the HITRUST risk assessment handbook itself. I'm not going to cover, we're on page 10 of 237 pages so far. I just extracted some of the different resources already. I'm going to put those in the description below as well for everybody who's watching afterwards. But also just kind of extracting some of the information out of here and kind of deciphering it. One of the big key highlights that I really like is that we could actually download the entire framework kit for $0. We just had to enter our information and got the kit. So now after this stream or otherwise, I can go through and look at the spreadsheet and check it out and also use that while going through this handbook to understand it a lot better. And so I'm just trying to skim through some of this here in a moment. I'm probably going to go back up to the table of context and skip ahead to like the assessment workflow and so forth. But we were just talking about these certification stages here. And then the external assessors do have to be approved by HITRUST. You have to contact them and go through a process, which is sounding a lot like with ISO. And then they have all of these requirements here for them, of course, as well. They do mention this CCSFP. Internal assessors. So internal assessors are those departments or business units who facilitate the HITRUST assessment process by performing readiness, self-assessment efforts, or performing testing on behalf of management of the assessed entity in advance of an external assessor's validated assessment fieldwork. Internal assessor practitioners are in-house or outsourced CCSFPs who are typically positioned within or engaged by an external entity's internal audit department, but also may have been positioned within or engaged by a department meeting specific objectivity requirements. So that seems kind of confusing to me a little bit. So, so could I still be considered, so with an internal assessor, so I guess that could be, I could go off and get the CCSFP or otherwise, so I understand what the hell I'm doing with HITRUST, and then I can consult for an organization to prepare them for the readiness and self-assessment efforts prior to a accredited external assessor to come in for it, I guess is what that's kind of sounding like. Because it states here that typically positioned within or engaged by an assessed entity's internal audit department, but also may be positioned within or engaged by a department meeting specific objectivity requirements. In-house or outsourced. So I could work as a third party, just consulting to assist businesses with getting prepared is what it sounds like, without having that third-party external assessor certification. That's another one I'm going to mark here too. And so this is page 12. Just developing some questions to send to them as well. And if you guys have any questions or otherwise, definitely let me know and I can include that as well. As mentioned above, in advance to the validated assessment, an assessed entity may perform assessment procedures against the HITRUST CSF internally using an internal assessor. The results of recently completed testing performed by internal assessors can, at the external assessor's discretion, be relied upon by the external assessor to reduce the extent of the external assessor's direct testing. For further details around relying on internal assessor testing, see 12.4 reliance on testing performed by assessed entity. I don't know how I like that either. I kind of feel like an external assessor would be like, nah, I'm going to have to do this myself so I can charge you, 200% more. That sounds kind of not beneficial. So like with CMMC, for an example, you can go through and you can get, you could have a third-party consulting agency assist you with being prepared for the C3PAO to come in and do the actual assessment and submit to the DoD for SPARs and so forth. That can save you a significant amount of money, hopefully. And here they're literally dictating out that the external assessor, it's up to their discretion whether or not they'll utilize internal assessors, testing and results and so forth. Maybe David B can clarify that if he knows, but because David B does work with HITRUST. But yeah, that's a little concerning. I kind of feel like an external assessor would be one of two different ways. Either they would be, like, oh, I am so backlogged that I'm just going to go ahead and accept this and send it. Or they're going to be like, nah, I want to make some extra money off of this deal here, and I'm not going to allow you to use this internal material for it. So I wish that it was more clearly defined there. But also, to put it another way too, like utilizing an internal assessor's testing and assessment information and so forth could actually make it more work for a third party as well for an external assessor. So, I mean, there's that aspect of it as well. Still a few different things. Independence requirements. Objectivity is essential for both external and internal assessors. However, there may be a level of complexity when an external or internal assessor attempts to determine their independence and objectivity during a HITRUST assessment, as it involves both the fact and appearance of a specific circumstances. HITRUST has defined the following independence guidance for external and internal assessors during performance. All right, so these are like some of the different requirements to, ensure independence requirements, objectivity, bias and so forth, it looks like. So the external assessor firm used for a validated assessment must be a separate legal entity from the assessed entity. So there can't be a connection. It can't be owned by a parent company that owns the other one or otherwise. I kind of feel like there could be some loopholes there though too. So it says a separate legal entity from the assessed entity. I mean, if you're a massive organization, what stops you from just going off and opening up a new LLC and running your own external assessor? I mean, to be honest with you, when you're talking about some of these big boys and so forth, like that could actually be cost effective to just spin up a free Delaware LLC and, hire somebody on who's a C3PAO or a CCSFP or whatever it is. So They just state a separate legal entity. I wonder how HITRUST would approach that, though. Like, I highly doubt that there's very many that would even do that. But let's see. So the external and internal assessor function must be independent of the business functions being assessed. The independence requires that there be no overlap in responsibility, staffing, ownership of the controls, or reporting between the business functions being assessed and the external or internal assessor functions. All right, so that kind of sounds like the assessor function must not be below the rest of it. You got an answer for that, David B? Ownership of the policies and procedures being assessed must be independent from the external or internal assessor's function. Management of the assessed entity must not be able to restrict the nature, scope, and extent of testing determined to be required by the external or internal assessor. I think that's a really important one. So the nature, the scope, or the extent of testing cannot be determined or restricted by the actual assessed entity. So if you're going in to assess for HITRUST, then that organization can't say, oh, we're not worrying about this one computer here, or oh, this router here is out of scope, or restricting your ability in conducting business would be a way to put it. External or internal assessor personnel involved in the prior 12 months in the implementation or operation of assessed and validated may not work on the validated assessment for the assessed entity. Okay, so in the prior 12 months, so if you assisted an organization in a prior 12-month period in the implementation or operation of the assessed entity controls evaluated within a HITRUST validated assessment, you cannot work for on the validated assessment for that assessed entity. A separate team, including a separate engagement executive or partner, must be brought in for the validated assessment effort. That's another really good one too. I could understand that. External or internal assessor personnel involved in a HITRUST validated assessment may perform consulting or evaluation services for the assessed entities, such as the following. So HITRUST policy and procedure consulting, penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, HITRUST readiness and gap assessments, assessment types. Okay, so this is like getting to the meat of it. So assessment types. So Ryan did cover some of it. So the maturity level, I'm kind of curious about like what their levels are for maturity level, including the R2, I1, E1, and targeted assessments. They have a couple new ones too, like an AI one now as well, which they have a really fancy diagram at the end of this document that I noticed. HITRUST risk-based. So 2-year R2 assessment, a risk-based and tailorable assessment that provides the highest level of assurance for situations with greater risk exposure due to data volumes, regulated compliance, and other risk factors. The R2 provides a high level of assurance that focus on a comprehensive risk-based specification of controls with an expanded approach to risk management and compliance evaluation. So that's a little bit of a mouthful, sounding a little bit like NIST. And then HITRUST implemented. So that's where we get the I here. So I1. So R2 for a 2-year risk-based, I1 for implemented 1-year assessment, a cybersecurity assessment inclusive of information technology controls. So that's an important note to make, is information technology controls for the I1. The I1 provides a moderate level of assurance that addresses cybersecurity leading practices in a broader range of active cyber threats than the E1 assessment. So And I believe it's this E1 is like the lowest level one, which I'm probably wrong, but it was somewhere around the range of like 47 controls or 48 controls or something like that, which is like their bare minimum. That's the best practices. And I hate the fact that they mention here good cybersecurity hygiene, but hey. So E1 for Essentials 1-year assessment, a cybersecurity assessment that focuses on a curated set of cybersecurity controls encompassing fundamental cybersecurity practices or good cybersecurity hygiene that allows for the optional addition of other authoritative sources available through the HITRUST CSF. The E1 provides entry-level assurance focused on the most critical cybersecurity controls and demonstrates that essential cybersecurity hygiene is in place. I mean, that's yeah, so like Ryan had mentioned last week, that's like the bare minimum. Best practice is, you know, what you should be doing at the bare minimum. One of the key things that he also did mention during that live stream last week is that if you wanted to, you could just go with the E1 and stay there. If you are only worried about the best practices and, you know, the bare minimum of what's out there and so forth, the E1 is definitely an option. I would like to compare that to like maybe the CIS, because like the CIS has some really good base practices too when you look at that IG1 and then, you know, some of those IG2 controls. I wonder how it compares to the IG2 level with CIS. So I've talked to several people like at conventions and so forth that were looking at, you know, IG1, IG2, and then map that over to the CSF 2.0 just to, you know, make the process a little bit more, I would say easy, but I don't think easy is the right word to use there. Targeted assessment. So then you can also do non-certifiable self-assessments, which consist of only of HITRUST requirement statements that map to one of the authoritative sources. So if you wanted to, you could use HITRUST authoritative sources here for, you know, one of these other frameworks, but it's not certifiable. And it also states self-assessment. So HITRUST refers to the R2, I1, and E1 as a transferable portfolio, meaning the portfolio builds on the baseline requirement statement within each assessment type. Do they have a nice... So they do have this nice little table here, which gives you a good rundown as well. So we got the E1, the I1, and the R2. So can results in the HITRUST issued certification? Yes. Length of certification, 1, 1, 2. Final reports resulting from assessment? Yes, yes, yes. So the assessment results can be shared through the HITRUST results distribution system. Can results in the HITRUST issued certification over the cybersecurity framework? No. So only the R2 is over the CSF 2.0. Can results in a HITRUST issued certification over artificial intelligence? So all of those would qualify. Can results in insight reports over selected authoritative sources? Yes. Readiness assessments? Yes. Requires an authorized HITRUST external assessor to inspect documented evidence to validate control implementation. All of those are yes. So you have to have the external assessor for any one of these levels here for that E1, I1, R2. Leverages the HITRUST control maturity scoring rubric. That's what I want to look up. I want to see, I'm probably going to go up to that table of context here in just a second and look to see if they have that maturity scoring rubric here. Fieldwork window. So the assessor, it looks like, it sounds like it's a 90-day window for the assessor. Let's see. And then also it mentions here that it can be tailored as well. to also include or convey HIPAA, NIST, AI, RMF, ISO, so forth. All right, let's go up and take a look at this maturity model. So we've only made it to page 15. This document is pretty massive. I'm probably going to go for like maybe another half hour or so. But let's see if I can find this maturity model here. Yeah, right. Well, they have the control maturity levels. Oh, okay. So they have multiple different types. So they have the policy maturity level, procedure, implemented maturity level, measured maturity level, and managed. Let's go jump down there. So chapter 10, HITRUST scoring rubric. And there's also this here. I don't see a diagram. I wish there was a diagram here. Let's see. Let's go back over to the maturity models. Implementation strength. Wow, that is blurry. Okay, so this is just, so HITRUST has developed the control maturity scoring rubric to assist assessed entities and assessors with scoring control maturity for each requirement statement in an assessment in a consistent and repeatable way. So the strength and the coverage. All right, so implementation strength as a percentage of scope components, such as systems and facilities. So we have tier 0 to tier 4 with a percentage score, and then a percentage of evaluative elements implemented coverage, and that moves up. That seems pretty restricted. Wow. Yeah, no worries, Cam. So I went live a little bit after 6 p.m., just going over the HITRUST assessment handbook itself, extracting some of the different resources from it that I'll put in the description below, and just trying to learn more about this this particular program itself and some of the different nuances with it. The main document here is 237 pages for the assessment handbook. We also found a risk management handbook for HITRUST as well, which is interesting. But yeah, no worries being late to the party. GRC MAFIA. Yeah, and so this is like the maturity levels here. So tier 0 to tier 4. And then they also have it separated for multiple different types. And it doesn't have it here, but so this is for the controls, it looks like, or the overall. And then they also have another one here for, let me make this a little bit bigger here. So they also have this here for policies. So their policy scoring. So control maturity levels. So no policy is going to be that 0 to 10%. Undocumented policy is going to be that low baseline here. And then tier 2 is going to be documented policy. And I honestly have no idea what the hell this means. So, okay, here we are. So we have these different abbreviations here. So NC, SC, PC, MC, or FC. So somewhat compliant, partially compliant, mostly compliant, or fully compliant. And so we could see that up here on the chart here. So 90 to 100% would be fully documented tier 2 for a policy, and it would be fully compliant. MC would be mostly compliant with a 66 to 89% of coverage. And then PC would be moderate, partially compliant. And then we have the somewhat compliant and non-compliant section here as well. This isn't bad. This is actually pretty thorough. Like, you could definitely tell that they put a lot of thought into this. Yeah, like that's actually pretty neat. I like that. And it's talking about coverage. And so I would assume, and like David B or somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, but so the way I'm thinking about like utilizing a matrix like this would be, if you review the policy and like, oh, they have, 80% of the material mentioned, and therefore it would fall under that documented policy MC for mostly compliant because it follows into 80% of the requirements for that policy. And then that can also help you, figure out like, oh, okay, we need to get this the rest of this figured out as well. Yeah, right. Yeah. Not everybody's as skilled as David B over here with 2.5 times speed. I wish I could do that kind of stuff. Yeah, so this is pretty neat. So this is starting on page 83 of this assessment handbook, and they have these different matrices here for different options here. I mean, this is a nice little diagram. But then also the cool thing is then they have several others here too that they listed out. I don't know if it lists it here. So let me go back up here. Ooh, look at that. Pretty. This is R2 validated assessment workflow. Oh, that is nice. So the legend down here, so green is primary action is, I'm getting sidetracked, but that's okay. Primary action is owned by the assessed entity. The dark bluish color is primary actions owned by the external assessor. And then red is primary action is owned by HITRUST. And so this is for R2, assessment workflow phases. So answering pre-assessment, answering assessment for the assessed entity, and then performing validation for the third-party assessor. And then assessed entity would do inputting caps and signing rep letter, reviewing caps, performing check-in. Okay, so then the third party would then submit to HITRUST, it looks like, or put it in MyCSF along the way. And then it goes over there. Nice. I mean, that's actually pretty neat. So these 3 green sections here is what the assessed entity would do. And then you don't really do anything else until you get to the draft review for the reviewing draft deliverables. Bam. Do they have the same thing for like the rest of them? So that's the R2, answering pre-assessment. And they also mark this down here as well. So like this is talking about the answering pre-assessment. When an assessed entity creates a new assessment object, it begins the assessment process by entering key preliminary information. After completing these fields, MyCSF will be able to generate its assessment. All right, so the assessed entity must complete each of the following pre-assessment web forms within MyCSF. So the name and security, organization information, assessment options, scope of the assessment, default scoring profile, and factors. And then answering assessment. And then they also do have this link out to pre-assessment, chapter 6. So, I mean, this gives you a complete walkthrough. This is actually really well done. I like this. I mean, it gives you a complete walkthrough of each step. But now I'm kind of curious, do they have the same thing for like E1 or I1? Oh, geez. I thought I1 or E1 would be easier. That's a lot more steps. That looks like twice as many steps as the E2 or the R2, I mean. Oh, yeah, that does make sense, David B. Yeah, thanks for the confirmation there, too. Yeah, adding up and divide by the amount fully compliant to get a ratio. Yeah, so I will skip to that here in just a moment, Cam. I skimmed across and saw a really cool diagram for the A1, for their AI. But this is really neat. I wish, I'm not going to put NIST down, but NIST could go through and make some diagrams like this and provide a step-by-step, like they have here, because they do not currently have that. Like in the 830, they do have the assessment process, but it is not nearly as detailed as this appears to be. So that is pretty neat. Let me see if they have the A1 here, but I know that they had that at the end as well. So readiness assessment workflow. So they really break this down for you. Here's the R2 bridge. Status. Yeah, and so this is some of the different views that appears to be in my CSF actually too, for the different phases, which I like how they break it up. Like it doesn't seem like a bad SaaS product. So, you could see right here, assessment details page, and this is how it looks. So we have a timeline, we have our fancy graphs for the requirements and everything else. And I feel like this makes it way more simplistic, and then you know where we're at and what to do at that point. This really is, this is a pretty impressive document. I wasn't expecting the amount of detail in here. Yeah, and let me go ahead and come back up here. Let's see. There was a section here for the A1. I thought there was. Okay, so this is the part that I had skimmed over, is the expected AI expertise for external assessors. Yeah, it's talking about like RAG and predictive AI versus generative and so forth. I don't think that they have something as detailed as we were just looking at, like for those other types of certifications. So AI security certification eligibility. This is primarily this is the diagram I looked at before, is that this just gives you, like, are you eligible for it in the first place? So it's a nice little walkthrough here on page 226. So you can utilize this to figure out, like, can I even get assessed for the AI security assessment? They probably have a different document for the AI portion. Let me actually check real quick, because I have this open on another screen here. Okay, so this is on the home page for them. They may have another document for it otherwise, but it does say that it supports responsibility inheritance when paired with E1, I1, or R2. So up to 44 different controls specifically designed to address the security needs of AI platforms and systems, tailored control selection, rigorous assurance mechanisms, proactive threat adoption. So this is designed to be paired with a certified E1, I1, or R2. Download the details. Yeah, I got to enter all of my information for that too. Yeah, just because of like best practices, like I I can stream anything that's publicly available, such as this risk assessment handbook, but when it requires information, then, you know, that's a form of like paywall to an extent. And I don't stream that. So, but that's what I would look at, is they probably have a document in here if you enter your information here. And I would not be surprised if they have something in there for it. So no. Cam asks if CISO Assistant has a map to HITRUST. They do not. So just a moment ago, towards the beginning of this live stream, I was able to download the HITRUST kit by just providing my information, which does give me access to the spreadsheet and the documents that coincide with it for their beginner kit thing, which I think is awesome. But CISO Assistant does not currently have a HITRUST. I actually pulled it up because I was curious, and they don't. They do have ISO, for an example, but that's one of the things I'm going to actually ask CISO Assistant and figure out, like, if there's a reason why. If there's not really any reason why, then maybe that's something we could provide to, you know, CISO Assistant. So like with ISO 27001, that is a pay vault framework and so forth. And CISO Assistant does have ISO, but the key thing is that you can download the controls or otherwise, but they don't have any of the control details. So you have to manually input your control details that you would have to copy and paste out of the document that you purchased from ISO. I'm assuming that would be something similar with HITRUST, maybe more of a paid framework. That's weird. The connection might have skipped for a second there or something. I'm not sure. Restream did completely update their systems here, and it's been acting a little funny. But yeah, I'm going to talk with CISO Assistant and see if that's something we could do, because I think that would be pretty neat. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is because of you know, that IP information. And so intellectual property and so forth, and that's like the issue with ISO, but you should still be able to go through and actually list out the control numbers, and then you would just have the end user input the actual control information. That's like how CISO Assistant gets around with ISO. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Come on, PBO, get your stuff together. We got to get some of these diagrams for NIST. Firing off neurons. But yeah, that's my assumption, is just because the intellectual property, CISO Assistant doesn't have it, but they should still be able to do the control numbers, and then just the end user would have to copy and paste in the control details, which kind of sucks. But then also, I don't know. I mean, would it even be beneficial for a CISO Assistant to have it? If you're actually going for accreditation, then it kind of seems like you might as well just use the SaaS product, My CSF, because you have to use it anyways. So I don't really see a benefit, if you are accredited or going for that certification, to use something like CISO Assistant at that time for that program. Now, one of the benefits of doing so would be the fact that, like, right now I obtained access to the spreadsheet for HITRUST. So in theory, I could import that into CISO Assistant for myself and utilize that, but I wouldn't be certified. I couldn't utilize the name or anything like that. But at least they do provide the spreadsheet for it. Oh, David says that a couple of his coworkers know Ryan, and he's pretty good guy. Well, you know Ryan now. You talked to him on a live stream. Come on, David. I have like 3 different questions for him right now, just going through this document. I am going to get with him as well, because during that live stream, if you guys missed it, on the HITRUST Academy here, they have this new customer orientation. So orientation course provides an overview of how to navigate MyCSF, offers tips from experts, and outlines the best practices for a successful HITRUST journey. I myself want to learn more about HITRUST, and typically this is for new customers only, but Ryan did say that we could reach out to him via email and get access to one of these new customer courses here, or orientation classes. And so if you guys are interested, let me know. His email was shared on the live stream, and you guys can see about getting into this as well. So all virtual is 1 p.m. Central Time, with the next one being May 27th. So May 27th is going to be a Tuesday. And then June 24th, which is also a Tuesday. It looks like it's the last Tuesday of every month. So I'm going to see if it'd be possible to get into that May 27th one. But after him talking about it all, I mean, it does seem pretty impressive. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's like the big brother to 853. Let me clear this out. I'm going to go back up here to the top, and I'll probably start bringing stuff to an end here shortly. So if you guys have any questions or otherwise, definitely drop it in chat. I'm going to send in an email to him tonight for some of these questions, especially on page 12 for the CCSFP consulting. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he seems like a really cool guy. I mean, the fact that we all could get into the new customer training for no cost and so forth is neat. But then also if you look at his LinkedIn, he's posted like, all kinds of different stuff about HITRUST, being like, hey, do you guys have any questions? What is your understanding and so forth. He's definitely more than willing to help. One of my biggest issues with HITRUST is the fact that the cost for entry, as an individual, I mean, it's quite a feat to go up and throw, basically $3,600 at a certification. And then I believe it's like $1,600 a year or every 2 years for renewal, which I think is great and everything else that you can. But it is unfortunate that people who are new to the industry, or even other assessors, if their company's not willing to pay for that, it does definitely restrict it. I think it would be a pretty good advantage on the job front if you have the CCFTP, or the CCSFP certification, which is like $3,600, and then that would look pretty good on a resume for an organization that utilizes HITRUST. So. Yeah, absolute worst case scenario, you could import the spreadsheet. So you could download the Excel file for the framework, which is freely available. You just enter your information, and then you can import that into CISO Assistant. And let me pull this up here. I would do it live on air, but that's probably not a smart idea. Just because I have to enter information to obtain the spreadsheet itself. But if you go over to, so inside a CISO Assistant, on the bottom left-hand side, you can go to the experimental, and then they have the import wizard, which you can upload an Excel file and import a framework. And they also have like a template that you can use and so forth too. Correct. Yeah, and so like David B mentions, is it's only really valuable if your company has it in or is certified to do HITRUST engagements. And of course, my company paid for mine. I would not have paid for it out of pocket. 100%. Yeah, if you're not working for an organization that's certified and does HITRUST and so forth, it's kind of pointless. However, like I do find that to be valuable. Like HITRUST is looking pretty good. So, and I like the fact that it's also updated at least twice a year. But yeah, we covered quite a bit in this document already. This assessment handbook is pretty impressive. I really like the diagrams that they have for the workflows. So what is it? Chapter 5 here, assessment workflow, which also breaks down each step. Scoping the assessment, requirement statements, the control maturity levels. This is the section that I wanted to show here. So this, I think I already skipped over it. So the control maturity levels, they have a policy maturity level, procurement, implemented maturity level, measured maturity, and managed maturity level. HITRUST scoring, testing approach. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to look at was the sampling. Oh, here it is, population and sampling. I wanted to look at that. So testing and evidence requirements. I was curious what they state for sampling. So when I went through the ITV Pro CISO training for the CISA from ISACA, I did not obtain the certification or otherwise, but I did take the ITV Pro training for it, just because, you know, why not? You could definitely study a certification without actually intending on taking it. And I was, at the time, I was like absolutely dumbfounded because I had never even come across sampling methodology before. And then I spent like 2 or 3 days just like looking into it and everything else, because it is, you could really go down a rabbit hole for sampling. So if you're ever bored, just go to Perplexity or otherwise and be like, what are the different types of sampling methodologies? And then just prompt it for the next 2 days. External assessors are often required to perform sampling to validate management scoring. The first step in the sampling process is to identify the population. The population for the assessment scope may use common process aggregation to group those systems or audible business units. All right. So for populations, the following requirements must be met. So each sample-based test must be designed appropriately to detect potential errors. For example, the population should not be obtained from a source that only contains items that already adhere to the control being tested, i.e., a test around whether antivirus is installed should not have a sample selected from an antivirus console, since that will never yield a deviation. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, that's, hopefully common sense, but yeah. So in short, when you go through and you sample, you need to make sure that you can detect potential errors, and then also that the items obtained from the source that only contain items that already adhere to the control being tested. So if you're like it states right here, is if you're testing to see if antivirus is on it, you can't just select a computer that you know already has antivirus for an antivirus console. Assessors are expected to use a sample-based test when testing the implemented maturity level for a requirement statement, and the illustrative procedures for the implemented maturity level indicates the select a sample. Okay, so the select a sample is probably in the MyCSF. No, HITRUST has not contemplated within the illustrative procedures all situations where the external assessor may need to perform sampling to address the required statement. The external assessor may determine that a sample-based test is necessary to validate the HITRUST requirement. And one of the other things that Ryan had mentioned last week is that HITRUST compared to others. So if you look at the 853, the NIST CSF 2.0, CIS, all of these different frameworks that are out there and so forth, the large majority is voluntary and can be tailored pretty extensively, and that includes the sampling as well. So, yeah, it's seeing that there are rules in regards to how you get evidence is definitely important here. And it does state that it is left up to the external assessor. But Ryan, what I was going to say is Ryan last week did mention that on average, HITRUST has way more evidence collected than traditionally in CSF 2.0 or 53 or whatever it is. So, yeah. I mean, if PBO is still watching, maybe he can give us an example. But like NIST 853 with 500 controls or something, you may only get 50 pieces of evidence, whereas with HITRUST, you're going to be looking at a much higher rate. Oh yeah, you should go down a deep dive, Cam. Like, sampling methodology is fascinating. So like block sampling or otherwise, like there's all kinds of different stuff out there. It's a huge thing around auditing, and it's extremely important to at least understand a couple of the different popular ones out there. Oh, that's interesting. So like David B mentions, is something to know is if something is fully automated, then it doesn't require sample testing. Could you provide an example for that, David? Like, just out of curiosity, do you have like an example of what you mean by that, by like fully automated? For I1, E1, and R2 CSF version 11 and later assessments, HITRUST has included sampling badges on the requirement statements within MyCSF where sampling is expected. For all validated assessments, the external assessor is expected to document its rationale when they decided it is not necessary to perform a sample-based test. When the HITRUST requirement statement implemented, illustrative procedure in MyCSF indicates that a sample-based test is expected to be performed. So they also automatically, ask you for that evidence or otherwise, and you have to provide, a reasoning why you would skip it if you do. There may be situations where external assessors will perform a sample-based test at the measured or managed maturity level. In those situations, the external assessors must follow the HITRUST population and sampling guidance outlined in this chapter. The population used to select a sample must be homogeneous. This similarity may allow certain populations to be aggregated if it allows a common process subject to the same controls. When aggregating populations with different characteristics, each process must be reviewed to validate the homogeneity. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that again. And the rationale must be documented. For example, if testing change approvals for a sample of changes, the external assessor may determine to combine the for two different change ticket tools. This would probably be a little bit easier to understand if they have like a visual walkthrough for me. I'm much more of a visual learner. I do love reading NIST docs and so forth, but I am much more of a visual learner than anything else. Sample-based tests are performed to test if an attribute is being performed currently, point-in-time testing, or that attribute has been performed historically. Period of time testing. When an external assessor performs a sample-based test to determine if a population is currently meeting one or more defined attributes, historically defined, okay, time-based and item-based are expected to meet the criteria below. For time-based, daily backups, population of change tickets over a period of time, the period used for sampling must be at least 90 days and may not begin more than 1 year from the start of the fieldwork period. All right. So it must be at least 90 days for the sampling. So is that the previous 90 days? For time-based, when populations used for sampling does not include a date within the field work period, an additional item must be sampled within the field work period to validate the control is operating as expected. If an external additional item, okay. So again, external assessor may skip that. Item-based sampling, sample selection has not been performed by the assessed entity within 1 year prior. There is no population that can be tested. Oh, here we go. Oh, look at this, David B. Welcome to
Hey,
Party
man,
Pal.
sorry it's dark out. I'm walking my dog right now, but I'll just turn that off. But yeah, so the sampling over time, um, like it says within the 90-day window, you just, depending on what it's actually asking for, they'll give you the hint that it's sample-based testing. Now, if something's fully automated, like a CICD, continuous integration, continuous deployment for change management,
Hmm.
then as long as you can show the configuration setting and how it's ran as your evidence, then they usually allow that to go through. You just have to make sure that your write-up is fully compromised of or composed of what's going on.
I see.
But when it comes to sampling, so they do a max of 25, a minimum of 3, and then it's 10% anywhere in between. So that way, let's just say that you were onboarding employees and you wanted to see new hire training records. You get the list from the engagement period time, whatever the window is, and
Hmm.
like I said, HITRUST is a little stickier with their like 45 days before the engage. I still forget all those those little.
Yeah, I'm looking at this diagram right now, and yeah, it is a little straightforward, but this is definitely something I would have to reference. Like, yeah, it's very particular, I can see.
Exactly, 100%. And but you stay within those metrics, right? And then you get your, let's just say there's 100 people onboarded, then 10% of that is going to be 10 people. So you met your minimum, you didn't hit the max, so you're going to look for 10 people, 10 random people. We do random sampling most of the time. We don't do haphazard, but you were talking to Cam about the differences. Yeah, you can go down the damn rabbit hole on how to sample things. Um, like I said, random, haphazard, selective. Yeah, it can. There's a few more that I'm just not. We mostly do random because it's usually the most efficient way and the most uh what's the word I'm looking for? Objective way to
Yeah.
get a good sample, a good feel. And then of course, if you we get an exception, like if you hit one, we try to stay within a 5% range, and I think that's exactly what it says. It might say it on there. I can't really see it as I'm walking, but if you hit that mark, then you have to go into an explanation and say, well, let's see, you missed 1 out of 10, and that's 10% right there. So is it so you got to work with them and say, hey, is this really an outlier, or was this just some simple mistake? But I can't give you an example off the top of my head right now.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
waiting
no
for this.
worries.
But so those are the things that come down to sample testing. And yeah, it really is. It can be a pain, but if you get everybody on board and they give you the right evidence, and that evidence matches what the control language is, then it's just smooth sailing. So
Yeah, and it also
and
states right below this diagram here too that the sampling method utilized may be any type of probability sampling chosen by the external assessor, such as random, systematic, haphazard, etc. However, the rationale for the method used must be documented, which makes sense.
yeah, we've I mean, it's not proprietary information on our own side, but we came up with our own high trust workbook because they do a lot of something I really love about high trust is that you can do offline uploading. So you can get your assessment, what all the BUIDs are. You can pull those down and you'll have all the controls. You can provide that to your client. It's technically the client's anyways, but you get that and the client then takes that, and if they do their due diligence and then implement it on their end, when it comes down to the actual assessment, then they'll have that stuff ready for you if they're a really good client. Hint, hint.
Mhm.
Now, that being said, when we use our own workbook to do our work inside, and it's got so many damn macros, it's just crazy. It's always calculating threads, or at least on my slow laptop that they gave me. But anyways, I digress. When you go
Oh,
to
no worries.
re-upload it, when you go to re-upload it though, it can take it from that standard document, and then all your information, all your implemented, all your policies and procedures, all the notes you wrote for
Uh-huh.
that, they're all in there into my CSF. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'm getting dragged into this rabbit hole for sure. I could definitely see the advantage of a high trust, and I like having more structure to it than something that's voluntary like these other frameworks.
Oh
But
yeah,
one
I
of
mean,
my
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, one of my slight issues with it is the fact that you have to use their my CSF portion. But I mean, it makes sense though too because you're typically pursuing that certification. So yeah.
Well, to be honest, and I'm sure Ryan would tell you, and anybody that's done it will. I mean, there's no reason to lie. Some people, you can do it straight into my CSF if you'd like, and that's what I was saying, is that we have found that my CSF is not the most friendly to use, and I think HITRUST is well aware of that. It's not necessarily tough or rough. If all you were doing was high trust every day, every single day, every client, eh. But our firm got very smart very quick and decided to use the power of Excel workbooks and macros and etc. to
Oh
uh,
God,
yeah, get it all prepared,
I'm
and then we offload
on
it.
board.
We upload it offline, if you will, matching all the columns and rows that they give to you, and then it automatically puts it in to my CSF for you. So then you just go back through and just do a little QA inside there just to make sure that the wording's, it got spaced correctly, etc. And what they're doing with my CSF is, like Ryan did bring up, is that they do a first initial review, and they use keywords, excuse me, that they search for in all the testing, and then that's how they know right off the bat if they should look at that with human eyes.
Correct. Yeah. And that I mean that's where some of these different advantages come in is because it's getting reviewed and they have these processes and it's way more structured. I can definitely see the advantage with it. I'm definitely going to get with CISO Assistant and see if there's a reason why they haven't done it yet. But I could see they should be able to at least get the controls in there, and then you would just have to copy and paste the actual details like they did with ISO. Um, but I think that would be neat because that would be something that we should be able to do is run it through. Oh, you disconnected for a second there. We should be able to get that into CISO Assistant as well. So even if you're not pursuing accreditation, you could still utilize the framework, it looks like. I'm pulling this up separately. Yeah,
Sorry
and
if
I'll
I
probably
keep
start.
dropping there, Chris, but
Oh, you're good.
yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah,
say,
like,
yeah, I'm about to get off too, but I just wanted to say one last thing, that I really think it is a valuable design. If you can get that into CISO Assistant, that would be super cool. However, they don't use like standardized control language, or sorry, I shouldn't say that. Standardized control, like say doc IDs, if you will. They use those
mhm.
BUIDs, which are they're their own. And but if you could do that in CISO Assistant, to where you could say, I don't know, you call your antivirus configuration AVO1, just using that as an example. Then if you
Yeah.
tied it also to a BUID that is applicable to high trust, then you could have the best of both worlds. So if you're doing a SOC or you're doing a high trust, you already have it kind of prepared. But so just something to think about
Oh
if you
my
get it in.
gosh.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm looking at this spreadsheet right now, and I don't know how many sheets are in here. Wow. Uh, yeah, I will drop the link to this again, but it is pretty extensive.
Yeah, and again, not everything applies to you, and it depends on which one you're purchasing. I mean, there's so many factors. I mean, hell, like if you did all the NIST 853, you would be so hardened that nobody would want to work there. You know what I mean? And that's the whole
Yeah.
thing about the sacrifice of security and easeability or workability, right? You got to have that little pendulum that swings back and forth. So,
Of course. Yeah, and it definitely has its place and so forth. But yeah, I'm gonna check that out and see if there's something we could do with it at least. But yeah, thanks for coming up and clarifying some of that too.
yeah, man, no worries. I really do like this stuff, and so I'm always down to talk about it if I have some time. And the more I talk about it, the more I learn myself. So, anyways, keep up the good work, everyone. GRC Mafia, I'm out.
Bam, GRC Mafia. Yeah, and so tomorrow I might stream a little bit more for this too. So tomorrow's Thursday, our primary meeting, and we'll actually have Chris Hilgado back. Hildago. I always screw up his last name, my bad. But I'll go ahead and move over here for a second. So tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Time, Chris Hildago will be joining us talking about data governance, a primer and pathway for GRC professionals. He has gone on a complete deep dive into data governance, like probably an unhealthy amount. I was talking to him about it. He also went through and presented a demo of this for his public speaking that is the last Tuesday of every single month, this last month as well. Some really awesome information. But then also maybe tomorrow afternoon or otherwise, I'll go ahead and stream again because I also want to cover this corrective action plan CAP and or gap in the assessment section. So chapter 3.9, caps and gaps. I think this would be a really good section to review as well in regards to HITRUST. And then I also will have that new series for the 60 days of GRC starting next Monday on the 12th. Positioning, it'll be a YouTube short published Monday through Friday, one every single morning, that will position a particular topic in a structured order and resources to dig deeper into that particular topic, and then encouraging everybody to go through and comment what you learned, publish on LinkedIn or other social media what you learned that day, share your study notes, talk about it more and so forth. We may make some live streams if somebody has a question, like if we're talking about, risk management, sampling methodologies, maybe we'll go live and talk about it deeper or otherwise as well. But yeah, probably tomorrow afternoon, I'll probably go through and go live again to go over these caps and gaps section as well. And then I just want to go ahead and grab this link one more time here before we bring this to an end. And then also, of course, outside of our live streams, if you guys want to, definitely the Discord server is the best place to go. Outside of our live streams to network, socialize, collaborate a little bit more. You could see here on page 5 is where the majority of these resources are. I'm going to drop this link one more time for this particular document that's publicly available. But then also they have this risk management handbook as well, which I'm going to drop in chat too, which I think is really awesome. And then you could also download the framework itself at this next link here. So if you scroll down on this page, you can hit the download link and download it. So I dropped this in chat here for the HITRUST CSF cybersecurity framework. You scroll down, click download, enter your information, and you can also get access to the spreadsheet and other help documents to kind of get started with it and dig into it a little bit more. Yeah, GRC Mafia. Yeah, thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I will see you guys in Discord. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. So tomorrow afternoon, probably 11 a.m. Central Time, I'll go live and we'll talk about these gaps and caps in regards to HITRUST. And